Welcome, everybody. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Chris.
And we are the Nerd Squadron 535 podcast. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how animation has kind of degraded in some aspects and really improved in others. I know for me, like, Japanese animation is just going above and beyond everything you could possibly want with frame rates, like just everything. And you look at Western animation, like modern cartoons, and it's just kind of crap.
I've kind of noticed that, especially like with what's being broadcasted on public television for sure.
Yeah. So for me, the real downfall of American cartoons essentially is it all started with Flapjack and Chowder.
You think so?
I hardcore believe that 100%.
That's a shame. I'm a fan of both those shows. Especially Chowder.
The animation was just so bad.
You think so?
Yeah, because so when those two shows came out, because if you look back and think on it, they have very similar animation styles.
Okay.
And then, let's see, what came after that? Like Regular Show, Adventure Time have similar art styles. And then, it changed a little bit with, like Gumball, Steven Universe, Sanjay and Craig was on Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
We Bare Bears has the same animation style as Steven Universe. Like, all of these shows nowadays, they have there's no originality to it. Okay. Whereas you look at anime, and while yes, there is for the most part a set art style for anime, but like no two anime are the same.
Oh no, you're correct.
Like
they have different styles, but the thing is, one thing I've noticed, especially with Western animation, is like based off of like what they're trying to get across when they make their shows. Whereas Eastern animation is starting to become more focused on motion and like the flow of how one scene goes into another, where they focus more on that than they do like dialogue. I believe West animation tries to focus on like dialogue scenes and like just trying to follow the storyboards, in which I think it could be seen as a crutch. Now,
well, for me, it's more of let's sell this product.
Well, I mean, sometimes they don't all have products. Like Flapjack and Chowder didn't really have much of like, say, a toy line or what have you.
Yeah, but a lot of it does, or like sometimes it can be hard to find. But there are toys for all of these things out there, and it's like, ooh, let's sell this shirt, let's sell this toy, let's sell whatever.
I mean, like, it's whatever they could make every week just to pump out episodes so they can keep running ads in the show. I think I can get that. But even then, I'm sure Japan, like, with their television, wherever they broadcast, like, shows like One Piece, they have these shows mainly to captivate people to get them to look at ads, too.
Yeah.
But it's just a matter of like what their priorities are when they make it. For example, like one thing I've noticed, especially like at least with like Chowder or Flapjack or even like Adventure Time, like the animation style and how they make their like imagery, it's very like, say what you will about simplicity, but it's very consistent. But where I have seen Western animation like degrade, like one example was basically Steven Universe. I know people get a lot of complaints about it for sure, and for good reason. Like if you ever seen a show, like you would notice like characters like on some scenes are scaled differently. Sometimes they have completely different animation styles based off of like what studio animates it, and it looks very jarring. Like you wouldn't be able to tell like if it's the same show or not sometimes because of like how they redo things, and there's no consistent.
It's very lazy.
Yeah, like,
and that's how I feel about most children's cartoons here in the West, because like look at Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse. Those look incredible, and then like you look at everything that DreamWorks has done. Like you go back and you watch Kung Fu Panda, and it still looks incredible. You go back and you watch Shrek, and it still looks good.
Well, now that you bring that, that's actually like one point I want to make too. It seems like, at least from what I've noticed when it comes to like animation, Japan does better than the West usually. I'm just gonna say Japan, but obviously like most of the Eastern animation studios, they better than the US when it comes to like two-dimensional animation, but when it comes to like 3D, like CGI, I think the West is best in this scenario.
Yeah. Oh, I think it depends on the studio.
Do you have any studios in mind that you might like?
Like for me, DreamWorks is probably the top when it comes to like 3D animation, where like Disney, I don't really care for their stuff.
I mean, like content wise, I mean, I understand story, I understand like theme or like premise, what have you. I get that, but in terms of like how they make certain animations seem lively, action filled, or like flow into each other, I think even Disney can do a great job with that. But even though it gets caught up in like other like maybe like a bland story, what have you.
Well, I'm going based off solely off of how the animation looks. Like you go and you look at Poe from Kung Fu Panda.
Yeah.
Like you can see his fur. Like it's not just smooth. Like you can see like the texture in Poe's fur. You can see the coloration in Poe's lips. You don't see that in most stuff that like Disney would do.
I mean, like I can understand that. I mean, well, there was like Turning Red that had like the fur.
Oh yeah,
actually.
But like that's over 10 years apart.
No, I understand that. But what I'm trying to say though is that if you look at when Japan uses like CGI in even the like two-dimensional like movies or shows, what have you, the CGI
stands out.
It stands out as being pretty awful. Like it sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
Like say what you will about like what exactly is being portrayed in like Western CGI and stuff. They do a great job at the technical aspects of it to make it look beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's really the core subject of that. I think I remember seeing, I can't remember this show, but it was just like this scene where like there was a bunch of soldiers like trying to attack like a tank or what have you, and they just roll over like bowling pins or get toppled, and it looks horrible. But yeah, so like I think like they nailed like to a T like how like 2D animation should be, but when it comes to 3D, I think they should like.
Well, honestly, something I've kind of really noticed with like One Piece and like Demon Slayer is they're getting much better at combining the two, if that makes sense. There's like a mid ground between 2D and 3D that especially like the studio for Demon Slayer has completely mastered. Like it's a whole nother art style within itself. So like, hey, this is happening here. Check out how cool this looks.
See, like, it's very recent. I've been noticing, especially like on Twitter. I've noticed that a lot of animators are now using 3D, like say like in a modeling software to create two-dimensional stuff.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like it's like made with a 3D form or what have you. It looks like it's literally like drawn when it's not. It's actually a model.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's actually really great if you're especially trying to create consistency in like scenes and stuff like that. It's perfect for that. And from what I've seen and how they handle like 3D animation and like Western stuff like Puss in Boots or Spider-Verse, they can nail like a kind of like frame by frame animation, like using CGI instead of like interpolation or like smoothing frames together. I think we're gonna reach a time where we're gonna innovate in terms of 3D animation, for example, and I feel like Japan, like this could be the thing that brings them up to par with us. But for now, like I think the main reason why Western animation has gotten so bad is mostly because one, of course, it's budget. Two, it's timing. It's all management.
Well, a lot of people, here in the U.S., they consider any form of animation to just be for children.
Correct.
Whereas,
I'm not gonna contest that.
like in Japan, for example, One Piece is watched by everybody.
Like everybody likes like Pokemon, or everybody likes Dragon Ball, and they know that, and they just make sure everyone enjoys that.
Yeah.
In the West, you notice that you see shows like Dragon Ball, or you see shows like One Piece. They assume it's for kids, but then they realize, oh, this ain't for kids, and then they have to like completely like castrate it in terms of like its content and its style just to accommodate this mindset that animation is for children.
Yeah.
And I believe it's actually crippling like our culture as a whole, not just like I'm just gonna say this from a perspective of an American. Like we focus on the idea that like we need animation be for kids when there's so much stories that are like that have been made in animation that are made for adults, like mature themes, not really like about like what content, like, oh, there's like a lot of blood or there's sex in the show, but there's like mature dealings
like
stuff
Family
like
Guy,
like
Simpsons.
it's not like slapstick like humor like Simpsons or like American Dad or Family Guy. It's like stuff like what's a really good example?
Sausage Party.
No, I mean like actual mature, like highbrow.
Primal.
That one's a good example. It portrays stuff like loss, coping with trauma, and trying to recover from that in a wake of survival and stuff. And it's very simple in how it executes it, but it's perfectly well done. I mean, like, I praise Primal for that. And
well, honestly, you could really put Samurai Jack into that category as well, because originally, it was on Cartoon Network. It wasn't on Adult Swim. So, like, when we were growing up, we grew up watching Samurai Jack. And it had more of those types of themes because, Primal and Samurai Jack created by the same guy.
When you have stories that deal with stuff like identity or loss or like conflict with like one's beliefs and stuff like that, those are very much like grown up themes that a lot of people still can't handle. And I think, and even in some kids shows, they actually like take on that subject with like a great deal of care, and it works out really well. And those episodes, for example, like I can remember like Hey Arnold, where they had like this character who was like a pigeon guy and he was like depressed and stuff. If you remember that, like it was a thing about depression and stuff, like about how you're like this guy's not loved or like he's seen as a freak, but like you would think that that's for like some grown-up topic, but no, they made it for kids and they make it well. Just because something like they make something for kids doesn't mean it should be like seen as only for kids. Like we kind of treat this idea that children are only meant to be like stimulated by like acts of like comedic violence or like
bright colors
like they're infants until they're like 18. And that shouldn't be the case. I think by thinking about it like that, we're causing these kids to not really grow up with these things in reality, which they very much are.
So, and going back to like looks and how like stuff has degraded, look at Mickey Mouse. Like you have the design of Mickey that everyone knows, and then I don't know how
they have the new styles, like kind of like
so it's
reverting back to the black and white thing.
But like it doesn't.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I mean, I don't know. This might be a hot take, but I actually do like. I've seen some of the episodes. I actually do like this new animation style.
I mean, it can work for like Mickey and Donald and Goofy and stuff, like those specific characters. But like they tried doing that with Looney Tunes a couple years ago.
Yeah, they made a couple like. Was it like 2 shows or is it just the one? They made a new Looney Tunes now, and they made a Looney Tunes before that was more like a. Kind of like regular show in terms of like how they do it is like real life. Like,
so that was the Looney Tunes show.
Yeah,
that came out. Oh God, I was in high school. I loved that show. Like
people still like it.
No, it's great. It's on Max right now. Go watch it. Right. But like it centered around like you were saying, like them in real life situations, which I thought was great. You can watch that. You can go back and you can watch the original Looney Tunes. There's nothing wrong with that. But like, so they've brought back Looney Tunes in and of itself, like 2 different times within the past like 8 years. So they tried it a few years ago, and like they tried to mimic the original art style, from
like saying
the
like
30s and 40s,
beat for beat like type of humor.
And it's like that just doesn't look right. And then they've kind of modernized it a little bit.
Honestly, like I think that might just be a byproduct of like us being in a digital age where we try to make things easier. I mean, it's not gonna be like the originals if we don't make it like the originals. And I kind of accepted that from the get-go.
I wish we had more originality. So that's probably my biggest thing is like the Western animation just doesn't really seem to have anything original nowadays. Like you can insert these characters from this show into this show's storyline and it can still make sense. Whereas like you put you can't put Daffy Duck in the place of Goofy.
No, I understand exactly what you mean. Like one thing, I don't know if I'd word it like originality. I mean, like I've noticed that some of the greatest like things actually came about just because they were inspired by like a previous thing. Like for example, like I remember Disney. They kind of like they didn't like plagiarize, but they stole this idea. I don't know. Like they had this. I think it was a movie or a show like Kim of the White Lion, and they like innovated.
So
and
that
made
was
into, like the Lion King.
So it wasn't Disney. Disney took that idea from, I think it was an anime.
It was an anime.
Yeah,
it was
so
like some Japanese thing.
Yeah,
right?
they took that entire idea and turned it into the Lion King.
And the thing is, like, I think as much as they did take from that like heavily, they did a great job at it because they brought something that is full of animation and full of like something that can translate to a Western audience.
Well, you know, Japan does it too. You know, you can look at most shonen anime and look at their main characters like, wow, this is in some form a ripoff of Goku from Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
You know, the idiot character eats a lot, stronger than
just wants to be stronger.
Just wants to be stronger and is stronger than everyone.
And they copy each other like beat for beat, but it's fine because people like that and they just
but like you can't
market.
Take Goku and put him in Naruto and it makes sense.
Right.
And you can't take Naruto, put him in One Piece.
And you're saying it's the same thing for like Western stuff.
Yeah, it's like you can't take the main characters from like most anime and put them in different ones, and those make sense. Where you can do that with a lot of shows.
That's kind of like one thing I've noticed, especially with like, for example, when we brought it up, like with like between Disney and like Warner Brothers with how they do Mickey Mouse or like Bugs Bunny and stuff like that. They're very different, like natured like characters of franchises. Like Warner Brothers is very much slapstick, very much like how else would I describe it? Like
Bugs is
Schadenfreude and like how they like to take joy out of like getting at the other characters and stuff like that.
So like, you know, personality wise, like between Mickey and Bugs is a smartass.
Right.
And Bugs is gonna do everything he can to make fun of you, whereas Mickey, he's just like lighthearted and like, hey, yeah, let's
kind-natured, basically.
Yeah, let's just have a good time.
And the thing is, like, in terms of how that affects animation, like for example, Looney Tunes, for example, like it uses like it needs more of that those frames and the like different timings and stuff. I think they call them like tweens and stuff that way. They time things to speed up in certain points and times when we need to slow it down for other points, and they do it really well. For the shows I've seen with like Mickey Mouse, and this is the old ones I'm talking about, didn't need to move around as much as like say a Looney Tunes character. Now, granted, some shows I've seen, like with the new one, and I remember this one episode of Mickey Mouse they didn't show it publicly or broadcast it like in the open. I think it was the one, I think it was called Runaway Brain, where Mickey Mouse was like swap brains with Pete, and Pete like became like Mickey, except he's just a nasty Mickey, like mean and stuff like that. And it would look really cool, but there's not much you can see with like Mickey Mouse, whereas with like Bugs Bunny was like very much like meant to be like this trickster type of character.
Yeah.
And I guess what I'm trying to say with like in terms of like how they handle up animation, they back in the day they were a lot more livelier. Nowadays with digitalization, they think because it's easier to make these animations, they should make the animations more simpler to keep it easy. Yeah. But the truth is, if you just push the envelope a little bit more, you can have these nice animations like in the past. I mean, it's not really difficult. I mean, time consuming, granted, yes, I'll say it's time consuming, it is. But it's well worth it if you want to keep an audience.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's just, you know, when we were growing up, it's if two cartoons had similar art style, it's because they were generally made by the same people. You know, like take Ben 10 and Generator Rex.
They're made by similar people.
Made by the same people, so they had similar art styles. Well, at least when Ben got to Alien Force. But like Ed, Edd n Eddy looks nothing like SpongeBob. SpongeBob looks nothing like Courage the Cowardly Dog.
But now we're starting to see people kind of like... we start to see the same people show up in like different studios and shows over and over again.
And they're just like using the same like fat, rounded out characters. I was like, can we have some originality?
I mean, I know like it's very difficult, especially like when a lot of people go into like public broadcast, like animation stuff like that. Like they come from the same school, so they end up learning from the same teachers.
Yeah.
And get graded correctly for the same exact thing, and they bring that up to their workplace and stuff. I get that, but in all honesty, I think the best thing for like a consumer who wants to be more informed should do is to not actually look at television like based media at all when it comes to like trying to find something of quality. Nowadays, like Twitter, for example, and YouTube, they've been getting a lot more animators that are trying to push the envelope, and not just out of like just trying to make make profit, which they probably want to make some money out of it. I'm not gonna mince words, but it's a product of passion, which we don't see now in like studios.
Yeah, there's they had a 14-year-old boy working on Across the Spider-Verse for like a Lego part of the movie.
I've heard about that.
Like he like animated, like he reanimated one of their trailers and made it all Lego or something, and they let him come in and work on that part of a movie where it's in like a Lego verse. It's like, that's awesome.
No, it is.
Like, that's ingenuity, you know, a little bit of creativity. Like, you don't see stuff like that anymore. Like, in Japan, like Toei, the studio that does One Piece, they are like stepping up their game hardcore.
Well,
like,
I mean, in the context of One Piece, they had a pretty important point.
Yeah.
I mean, like, sure, like I'm wondering how it's going to turn out once this big point in the story is over, and then see like, oh, in between times, how is that going to look? And it's probably going to look very like simple and straight up, like the panels and stuff.
Well, so Zoro and King's fight just ended in One Piece.
Yeah.
Sorry if this is a bit of a spoiler for anyone.
Yeah, catch up.
Yeah.
Catch up by now.
Just watch over 1,000 episodes in a day. But like, it set a world record.
Has it?
Yeah, so Impact Frames set a world record for the number of impact frames in the shortest amount of time. It was 39 frames in 2 seconds.
Damn.
Like, and I don't know, have you seen that episode?
I've seen it. I mean, like it's phenomenal.
Crazy.
Like, especially how they handle everything.
And then like you see the battle between Ash and Leon towards the end of Ash's run for Pokemon. Sorry, spoiler again if you're not caught up with that one. But like Ash's Pikachu and Leon's Charizard, like the animation for those two Pokemon going at it is amazing. Like, they haven't really done anything in Pokemon like that, not even really in the movies. So it's crazy to see how they're stepping up their games. And you see American cartoons just like, hi.
I mean, like, well, you got to think about it like this. When you have people like Oda, for example, like, work on these things, that's his bread and butter. That's his baby, One Piece. So, like, I'm sure he wants a lot of care to be put into it to make it look like exactly like how he envisions it. When it comes to, like, Western studios, at least, it harkens back to, like, trying to make everything seem humorous or very, like, simple, as if it was, like, immature. Not to say for kids, because they know now they're trying to get into adult animation, but it's still very much, like, childish in manner. It seems like they assume it's the case, so they want to keep, like, the animation or the style as simple as that. And when you prioritize just trying to get a message across, like, too overtly and not about, like, the content in of itself, you end up having something that's ugly. From my take, I think something that's very artistic and passionful will become like very beautiful in its product. And I think that we don't prioritize that here, and that's why we see shows that are incredibly ugly, incredibly like simplistic, and very much like, obviously you can feel that there's no like passion for it, just to get a check. They're there to get a paycheck, which sucks, because you know that they want to do their own thing and they want to work on bigger and better stuff, but like, oh well, this is what the studio is handing you to do, so go do it. And it sucks. Like, that's one thing I noticed with, like, I'm gonna bring back One Piece for example, but like with One Piece, like, if you if you've been through the ride like everyone else has for the past like 20, 30 years or so, you probably like may pick up on themes and stuff that like are so interconnected, like not only with itself but with the outside world, that is very much like a densely packed like pile of like, I guess, a worldview. I don't know how to put it.
Yeah.
But like something like that, when compared to something like, let's say, what's a popular Western show right now?
SpongeBob's still popular.
SpongeBob, right? Wait, you don't really have. I mean, SpongeBob is his own thing, but I'm like talking about like an overarching thing. I mean, like, let me give an example.
Like an overly popular character.
Yeah, like I'm trying to find a thing of a good idea, because the thing is, we're talking about like stuff like say, like comedic shows and stuff like that, but something serious I'm trying to think about that it's hard to find out. Like for example, like they focus on overarching themes,
Yeah.
and like the hero's journey, so stuff that's very much back end underlying, but it's foundational. Whereas we focus on the drama aspect. We're very much television brain in that sense, that we try to just see what happens in the next episode. We go straight towards immediate feelings rather than this comprehensive story.
So a lot of Japanese animation, I say Japanese, but a lot of Eastern animation, they take a lot of inspiration from the story of Journey to the West, about Sun Wukong, the Monkey King.
Yeah.
Like, that's the biggest inspiration for Goku. And if you know what's going on in One Piece right now, that's the biggest inspiration for Luffy is the Monkey King. So a lot of them do derive from like the hero's journey, like you were saying. A lot of Western cartoons nowadays are just like, here, there's bright colors and wacky stuff going on. Put your kids in front of it so that you can do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, like it's like
a distraction.
And I'm not saying this for all of them, because obviously there's some that do speak for it, but like when it comes to like being, if you have a hero's journey, like part of like the skeleton, like towards like an animation or what have you, or a story, any story, like it's part of that human condition that we kind of are able to understand and like take the message from, because we feel it in our everyday lives. Like,
yeah,
you got to make something, anything that's art related has to relate to the human condition in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's from just the basic stuff like beauty to stuff like trying to portray suffering or like achievements and stuff like that, great feats and stuff. When you don't really see that in Western animation, and when you do, it's very much like
dumbed down in a way.
Not dumbed down, but very much surface level. Like, they solve it right in front. They explain that that's the situation. They solve it right there and then, and that's it. There's no like
there's no journey to the hero's journey.
Yeah, there's no like character development. People are otherwise static because they want to keep this like preserved character. And One Piece does it too, but it's not really, when you look at One Piece, it's not just about Luffy. It's about everybody there.
Yeah.
But there's no like, they, instead of developing this one character, they develop the world, for example. Like
and that's why it's taken so long.
Yeah. Whereas, let's say, for example, like, what's a good example? I'm trying to think of a good example, like Flapjack or SpongeBob, whatever. They're always the same. They never changed one episode. Like, they'll go to the next episode, they're basically the same as they were before.
It's episodic, where like each episode is contained within itself instead of continuing on a story.
Like, my favorite shows are ones that are like overarching and stuff.
Yeah.
And like, I know it's not meant for every like type of show, which is fine. Like, SpongeBob doesn't need to be like overarching and stuff.
Yeah.
But like
sometimes you do need something like that just to like break it up.
Like, if you're not gonna develop a character like your main guy, you should at least use him as a vehicle to develop the world around them.
Yeah. Like, for me, you know, the past month or so, I've watched so much Smallville. And I'm watching Smallville for the first time. You know, you see the first season or two, and it's a lot of, you know, each episode's its own little thing. Whereas, like, in later episodes, like, oh, remember when this happened? So, oh, yeah, there's that connection. Whereas the later seasons, as I'm getting into, like, there's the big picture, like, the big story. And I know, like, Smallville's not animated or anything, but, like, I feel like this kind of plays into it. it fits what I'm going into, you know.
There's an overarching story.
Yeah.
Each episode like kind of like leans into it bit by
Yeah.
bit.
And
No,
that's
I understand that.
a lot of what anime is, because it's all written and drawn out well before it ever even gets considered getting animated, because not every manga gets an anime.
Here's the thing that's crazy though, right? You look at a panel in like say One Piece or like Demon Slayer or what have you, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have to draw that like 30, 40 times for each second in between.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of like frames. You're drawing like a comic over and over and over again. Like basically like you have to have like hundreds of people do that.
Yeah.
And like people kind of don't notice like how much you need to do to get an animation, why it's so expensive. And for that reason I can understand like in current times where we try to like make a way to make it easier, like interpolate like smart like AI interpolation or like AI generation and stuff like that, but I think it's worth it because it's not so much about like the product but just about the craft itself. People put their heart and soul into this, like people's lives are being put into these movies and like shows and stuff like that, that it should be like there in of itself of human achievement. And like I can simplifying stuff, it making our jobs easy is totally fine, but like I think we should always prioritize the things we do over the things computers do more than anything.
I agree.
Like what's another good example? Well, it's actually a bad example of animation. Like, have you ever seen I think it was on Netflix, the 2016 version of Berserk?
No.
So if you've seen, for example, the art style in Berserk or like the animation of the old anime of the one in 97, it's very much like, I would say it's just beautiful, like especially with like the line work and everything's so detailed. You think it's like a master who did it, because it was for all intents and purposes. But you look at this show, it was 3D animated, very lazily done. It looks horrible because you know the people who do it don't care at all for it. And the thing is, when you look at something like that it just ruins like a show for it, and I'm kind of mad about it. Like it ruins like a whole thing for you. You start to notice how exactly you see that similarity happen in most other studios.
Yeah,
like more local to you.
I kind of noticed that with Baki.
Baki.
Yeah, so like you watch the original stuff, and it's it's like you're saying with Berserk. It's like the details are nice, everything's nice and crisp, and then the newer, because it's a continuation. It's not a remake of the anime. They just modernized the art style, and even then, like there's a lot of really nice stuff that's done in the animation, and then there's some stuff's like, can you not do that?
Like another one, Hunter x Hunter. I keep saying Hunter x Hunter. Some people call it Hunter x Hunter, Hunter v Hunter.
I don't know what the actual pronunciation of the title is.
I didn't know this, but apparently the 2011 like anime, that wasn't the first iteration. It was the one before that.
Yeah,
and the one before that was actually like, I looked at it. It was so, I think it was 80s or 90s, but it looks so of its time. But it looks so like beautiful in comparison to like this one. And
I think it was like mid 90s.
And I sometimes see people style like their art kind of like the 80s or 90s style of animation, and I'm so happy for it because it looks like you care about like detail about how like hair would flow or how like the eyes look in different scenes and what have you.
Well, back then everything was hand drawn, and then nowadays even like the 2D animation style is still done on a computer.
Yeah, but how do I word it? It's anime now looks a lot cleaner. Very much cleaner. Like
Jinx.
Yeah. No jinx. Don't jinx me right now. But with the grit and stuff that comes from like manually like inking stuff or like even sketching it, like seeing the types of like artifacts left over about cleaning it up and stuff for post like processing stuff, it actually gives it like a bit more flavor, a bit more texture to like how like the animator kind of seeing it in their head.
Yeah,
like you're actually like witnessing like the minds of different people like culminating in each frame, and we just needed more of that.
Yeah, I know it. Even with everything being done on computers nowadays, the animation still takes a long time,
especially with CGI. Like,
yeah,
because
for a regular episode of One Piece, I read that it can take up to 4 months to animate it. for
Yeah.
just a standard episode. None of the crazy stuff that they've been doing. It's like, imagine how long it takes with Kaido, like when
Yeah.
he's in his hybrid form, or the animation for King and Zoro's fight at the end of it. It's like, God, these people are patient.
Yeah.
I could
Every episode where Luffy and Kaido clashing was like insane. Like
That's at least
I felt like 5 months of each time. And
That's
it's like
Oh, this singular punch took 2 weeks.
2 full weeks just to get this one impact, and that's it.
Yeah.
Every punch is like a week of work. But
So would you say that there are at least some positives to how the West has gone about doing their animation?
the positives I've noticed are from people who are either long gone or have retired, like already. I haven't seen anything truly innovative like come from the West, like Western animation studios. Sans like Tartakovsky, I think his name is, right, for like
Yeah.
Primal. He does a great job, but he's still doing that. But in terms of like making something brand new, like with
Something
like,
profound.
in terms of like not just, I'm trying to word this right. I want to word this very carefully. Like, I'm not talking about writing. I'm talking about like animation and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like in terms of like how studios animate certain things, I haven't seen anything spectacular in regards to like, especially like 2D frame by frame animation. CGI is a completely different story. We're seeing huge innovations with that, but I'm okay with that because I know that there's people that are smaller who do fantastic like work
Yeah.
and who know what to do. And if they had the budget, they could definitely make some amazing things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think animation as an art style or like as a medium or as a craft is gonna die down in terms of like skill.
No,
but I
no.
just think you're not gonna find the skill in like TV.
Yeah.
You're not gonna find it in like
I
Disney
think that
Plus or what have you.
all the necessary skills are there. They know what they're doing. It's just they're having to. Their mandates come straight from the studios. Like, this is what you're going to work on.
And you have it done by Friday.
Yeah, and like, this is how it has to be done. This is what we want it to look like because our studies show that this is what kids like. Like, okay, but that's why like a lot of Hollywood stuff is failing because there's no originality.
And like with regards to like Eastern like animation, I am stunned by how it's been looking on like the more popular animes. But one thing I have to like give notice to is also like the amount of work they put into it is like tantamount to like being enslaved. I heard this term from like a video, I guess, from some animator or some manga writer. It's like you're a slave to the craft, basically.
Yeah,
And I really don't want the future of like good animation to be equal to slavery, but rather passion. So
Yeah.
I think like they should definitely like get enough credit or at least enough time to enjoy the lives whenever so they don't end up wasting it away on these animations, and then by the time they're done they can't do anything because they're like either frail or like the hands hurt or like their heart's not working right because of it. I really think
yeah. I know Oda for One Piece is. I think I read somewhere he sleeps like 2-3 hours a day.
yeah, and I think he's going under surgery for something.
Yeah, he has a really bad astigmatism, so he's having eye surgery. So like One
Like,
Piece,
I think he's getting,
the
like,
manga's
something-
going on break for a month.
Yeah,
It's like
I hope he doesn't like nothing happens there.
Yeah.
I know it's just like an eye correction thing, but still.
it's like, you know,
I mean, I got
understand you have a lot to do when it comes to telling your story and whatnot, but like take
You
care
gotta
of
live
yourself.
life. You got the best way you can create great art is to experience life.
Yep.
And I think that whereas the ethic, I mean, not what is it, work ethic and
Yeah.
the passion Japan has for their work that harms them, I think they need the West needs a bit more of,
Yeah,
whereas the East needs a bit more of
relaxation.
relaxation and like trying to just get the broad strokes. Like this is where they can mesh.
Yeah.
Like they need to get a bit from each other. So
See what
they both
works
can
for
be-
each other,
yeah, they
and
both
what
can be
doesn't
built up.
work, and evolve their.
yeah, because either way, like no matter how much work you put into something, like you're trying to feed the world this idea, and the world is insatiable. You got to give them one thing that's good, and just leave it at that. It just said and done. If you worry too much about constantly creating content, you're just going to end up feeding them slop because all the nutrients gone.
Yep.
So it's okay to have short things. It's okay to have like something end. You should never ever like focus on trying to keep things like going for the sake of its own, like for its own sake, especially when it comes to animation, because it ends up going like down a crapper once like the budget's not there.
Yeah.
But yeah, focus on creating something that's evergreen and not trying to keep it green.
Yeah, and I think that's a good stopping point for us today. Thanks for listening.
Yep, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Especially comment. I want to hear your inputs regarding like how we see like animation, or what you've noticed in some studios, or like how they handle things. Maybe like share like your favorite animations that you've seen from the small people or individual studios. Your favorite scenes maybe from like an anime.
Yeah, we definitely want to know your opinions, and we want like a little bit of that conversation.
Give or take. I mean, we want to listen to you, but just say something so we can listen to you. But that's about it. I thank you guys so much.
Check out our other videos, all in our channel. So like, subscribe. Thanks. We are the Nerd Squadron 535.